Brooke, Robert, Justin, and Ryan, get ready. You're on episode 29 of the Radical Swing Analysis Series. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for joining us for episode 29 of the Radical Swing Analysis Series. In this series, we diagnose cause and effects from swing submissions, and you don't have to follow Reddit if you wish to submit your swing. If you do want to submit it, there's an email at the link down below. Just send me your down the line and face on. Keep in mind, I don't know any of these students. I don't know their range of motion. I don't know any injuries unless they put it in their notes. But other than that, let's get going. We're going to quick intro today, and don't forget, if you like that, hit that like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and I appreciate any support you can offer. But let's get going. First up on the screen here, we have Brooke. I just checked Brooke's notes, and there's no notes on here, so we have a clean slate, and we're just going to assume that the range of motion is good and assume there's no injuries or any issues like that. So we'll just get going here. Also, I just noticed I'm wearing the same shirt I was in the last video, so no, I don't have one shirt. It just so happened to be Blue Shirt Day, and I recorded on Blue Shirt Day for whatever reason. But let's take a look at Brooke. So Brooke, let's take a look at the swing, and let's see this motion. Okay, a little bit of excess tilting, kind of stuck on your, Okay. So already I see a couple things here you need to work on, and we have a good thing we also sent a down the line, which will also help us. Let's take a look at the setup first of all. So let me draw the lines. Okay, I've drawn the lines, and now let's take a look here. So based on this setup, we can see your shoulder tilt. If we connect your shoulder tilt, once I get this mouse to cooperate with me, and your spine, slight back spine. So the ball position is pretty good for that spine angle. You do look a little bit stuck on your lead side, so it's not quite, the weight distribution is a little bit off, and that ball position is actually a little bit behind, and you're forward pressing based on that ball position. So you might want to move that ball position up if you want to keep everything the same, and we'll see what that does in your cause and effect. As you take that club back, you do a pretty good job of just rotating. However, you can see that trail hip, and this is hip on our right view, which is your left hip. As you get to the top of the swing, it's kind of popping out on you, and you're trying to stay in that spine angle. And I believe just because you were already stacked on your lead side, which view is your right side, for our side it's our left view, you can see you almost have a reverse pivot going on here. This is very stack and tilt like. Arm position looks pretty good. You can see some daylight between the hands and the head, so that means you're pretty connected to your core. The club is nowhere near parallel, which is nice to see. Your head stayed pretty steady. A little downward motion, but that's okay, because as you tilt and turn, you might tend to go down, and that's something you push back up on. As you can see, your transition is very tilted into the target, so your upper body is leaning too much into the target. Now you have two ways to escape this. Is you could really, from this point on, all of a sudden drive your left, our view left hip, your right hip into the target, which will then correct your tilt position, or you might get stuck there, and all of a sudden you might have some pulls in your motion, you might have some rope hooks, you might have some heavy shots, you might have some thin shots. So that really adjusts your angle of attack. Now your angle of attack, if you just go ahead and turn from this point, is going to be very steep because you've tilted into the target. But let's take a look at how you manufactured your downswing. So there's a little bit of righting. You can see your hips trying to right everything back out. So at impact, now you're tilting kind of where you were at the start of your position. But to me, that's a little bit of inefficient motion, because now you're tilting the wrong way, and you're trying to just right your tilt. And by you righting your tilt, you're not really able to turn as much as you would like to. You're not able to transfer that weight. You can see your weighting on your feet is still kind of stuck in the middle. Your knees aren't really bracing down and turning into the target, and your hands are still forward pressing, which is nice to see. You're getting a little bit of shaft lean, but it's almost like a fake shaft lean, if that's such a thing. You didn't quite get there with your body. You got there with the hands. Your release point is pretty good. You're still connected, so you do a good job. Now you're coming over to your lead side, so you can see your weight's coming over, and your spine angle is now again back to kind of where it needs to be. So you can see your upper body does more of this instead of just turning. So I'd like to see you get a little bit more set up with a little bit of back lean, just a slight bit. Now we don't need a lot because we still need to hit down on it, but you can see you're very heavy, and then you get stuck on your left side. That increases your tilt, angle of attack increases, so unless you decrease that in your downswing, you're going to hit a lot of consistency issues. but your follow through looks pretty decent. You can see those excess arms, so as you take that ball strike, you come in out of the posture, a little bit too much rotation with the upper body, and the hands are kind of, you know, just flailing along for the ride, and you can see your hands have really crossed over from the center point to beyond your right side. So, you know, a lot of finish position is momentum based. It's not really position based. So think about this: the top of your swing should be more position based. Your follow through and your finish is based on the top position, and the follow through and finish is mostly momentum based. So we can pick up a lot on your follow through. Your follow through, you can see your weight has tried to shift to your right back heel. For the lefties out there, we flip everything, and you've pushed off on your left side. So you can see the drive is trying to get there, but it's a little bit too late because you're trying to rewrite your tilt, and a little bit too much excess turn during that rerouting after you hit the golf ball. So we want it a little bit before we hit the golf ball to help get those hands ahead naturally. But let's take a look at down the line. It should help us out more. All right, Brooke, let's take a look here. So setup, I can already kind of see a setup issue with your arms. You're definitely open to your target, which will now lead your path to be a little bit outside. You can see your arm path is pushing up and away from you, but now you're trying to pull that club back in. And when you're trying to pull that club back in, it shifts your momentum, kind of pulling you back. So to counteract that, your head goes forward, and that's also from your hands pushing away from your open position. So you can see your head motion comes from, you know, everything's leaning towards your toes as you take that club face away. Once you get to here, we already know that face on view, you're tilting the wrong way. So you definitely are able to keep a nice wide turn. You can see your hip is jutting out towards us, that daylight's kicking over, so you just see a lot of bumping going on instead of turning. And from here, you're probably going to get a little stuck. So there goes that turn, and you can see that outside in motion. So this is, you know, if you have a tilt issue and you turn from that excess tilt, you are going to have a very outside in motion. And from there, it's just, you know, a lottery. Can you time this outside in motion, and how's your club face related to that path? So if you are out to in, if your path is right 8 degrees and your club face is open 8 degrees, they usually offset each other and you hit a decent shot. But anything that you're missing off of that path is going to accentuate your misses. So I would imagine you do have days where your timing's pretty good and you get away with it a lot easier than other days where your timing's a little bit off. And this position can really tell the story here. I just see a lot of excess turn from this position. You can see both legs. You can see that upper body is open, that impact, it should be closer to square while the lower body is open. And that's just a result of that outside in, which probably stems from that, you know, definitely open starting position. You can see that path is definitely moving right. So you can see the club goes out, path moves right of your target, and it really comes down to how your club face is in relation to that path. But the follow through from this angle looks pretty good. Now in terms of your spine angle, let's draw some lines and check your spine angle. Okay, so these lines are basically just to show us your spine angle retention. I drew a back brace line to see how that relates to your spine angle, and then also your head brace line, just to see what goes on in your head. But, you know, if you don't really understand what I mean, you know, you can see your arms are trying to hang down naturally. However, you know, that ball position needs to be adjusted so you don't have this excess issue with your tilting at the starting position. Your left arm is definitely higher than your right arm, which will cause an initial plane issue. So naturally, if you just turn from this position with the shoulders realigned to the right of your target, your path is going to be exiting right of your target as well, unless you do some rerouting. So you try to reroute with your hands, but not quite enough. As you take that club back, let's put a plane line here too so you can see. So there's a lower plane line, we'll do an upper plane line for you. And as you take that club back, you know, your hands are trying to go along that path, but because they're starting out right, it's pulling everything a little bit towards your toes. And now look how much your head's dipped down and gone into the golf ball. So already your upper body's gaining tilt. So at this top position, you've actually increased your tilt, which is, you know, I prefer to see people increase their tilt, but how you did it was moving your weight forward and dipping down. Now the reason I prefer to see people increasing tilt is now their angle of attack can be steeper and they can really go down and get it, but you have to have a certain body style to do that. But as you come back down, you see your trail arm, or excuse me, your lead arm is on that top plane line, which is good. You somehow got there, so you've manipulated your arm position based on your increased tilt. So something's out of whack already. It's not quite as it was in setup. And then from here, you just basically turn from the top and there's hardly any tilt, and this is where you're left with. So now this club is almost pointing straight down to the ground. and that's not ideal. I mean, that's a very severe motion. If you tilt underneath that from this point, you'll hit the ball moon high. It'll increase your angle of attack dramatically. It's really hard to control because now you have to hold on to your release point, and then all of a sudden you're just blocking every golf ball to hit it straight. So as you take it in, you can see still in that new spine angle you created, so you stay down really well. But at impact, I mean, look at how much less room you have because everything's crunched down into it. Look at your head. Your head is dropped almost a full head width down. So a lot of this can be cured by your setup and then working with one-piece takeaways to feel like you're going more inside. So if you're not working with somebody, I highly recommend you do to get those couple things sorted out. But hopefully this cause and effect shows you, it's not really your concern to think about impact or your follow through or your transition until you take care of the basics, which is grip alignment, setup, posture. So hopefully that helps you. I'm gonna take a wild guess, say you're down in Florida. So if you're right, if I'm right, just let me know. If I'm wrong, just say I'm right, make my night, and we'll call it even. Thanks again, good luck to you. Let me know how it goes. Okay, Robert, here's your face on. So already it kind of looks like a little fake forward press, and let me draw some lines, and I'll try and explain what I mean by fake forward press. All right, so lines have been drawn. So fake forward press. So if you draw a line right down your spine angle based on your shoulder tilt, so wherever your shoulder's tilting, that's usually pointing where the spine angle is. So you go right in the middle. It's not exact, but it gives you a rough idea of where your body weight is in relation to your setup. And you can take a look at where your spine angle goes right through your hands, which is good, but then it keeps going on, and you can see that ball position is behind your center. So I'm not sure if you're working on any sort of shaft lean at impact, and sometimes we think we're cheating the system by getting shaft lean at the start, and we figure, oh, we're just gonna hold that and get shaft lean at impact. Now the problem with that is you now are gonna arrange your ball position too far back, so you can't really release it unless some things change. Some people move right to left to compensate that, but now all of a sudden that ball position is going to switch based on the center line of their motion. So always think about the spine angle as being the center of your swing. Wherever it's pointing, that's where the golf ball should be. If you're hitting the driver, you have more tilt because that tilting is pointing where the ball should be. If you're tilting where the ball should be and the ball's not there, something's going to have to get there to make the golf swing efficient. So let's see what you do. It looks like you're getting that shaft lean ahead by opening your shoulders. I can't really tell from this view, but we'll see from down the line, so we'll keep that in mind. But let's look. You do a pretty good job of keeping that right side braced against that right. Your alignment just looks a little off, so we'll definitely look at that down the line. Top of the swing, you can see you're still in your spine angle, so you're definitely stuck on that left side. Spine angle's definitely getting there. You do have some sort of power V going on here, this separation between your impact line. So, a little bit more might help you get more drive into it, but you do a really good job. Your lower body's nice and steady. Maybe you can get a little bit more hip turn to help you turn those shoulders just a little bit more and get those hands more out in front of you by not letting it go too far back. But the good thing is this club is nowhere near parallel, so that means that the arms and hands aren't as independent as I've seen. And let's see what you do on the transition. So transition, it's more of a kind of a lean going on there, which is okay. I mean, you definitely get some lean, but you have the tilting going down, which is okay. You definitely want that tilt going down at the start of your initial transition. Do you come back up? You do a pretty good job. Okay, so here's impact, right? And what's happened to your spine? So you can see your spine is kind of shifted slightly ahead of the golf ball. You've increased the tilt, which is something you would try to do because the lower body is driving, so your upper body complements that by increasing the tilt slightly for an iron. And let's see that follow through. So as you come through, look at your spine really kicking over to your left side. So now you can see your new spine angle line is falling kind of towards the target and leaning ahead. So that shows me that there is a little bit of too much upper body righting itself to try and hit the golf ball. And if you can also see something pretty interesting here too, is as you start leaning into it, what you've essentially done is because your spine now, your connection where your hands usually typically release is right at that center point. Because you've shifted your spine ahead, 3 or 4 golf balls, you've essentially moved your golf ball position 3 or 4 golf balls behind of where they started. So what do you think has to activate sooner to hit the golf ball? Your hands. So you've taken a attempt to forward press at impact, and by you moving ahead to get that golf ball connected to your spine again, you've now accentuated the need for your hands. So it's kind of taking the opposite effect. And I'm not sure if you're meant to do that, but it's something to be aware of. As you can see now, your hands have to activate, and that right hand comes over the left pretty quickly at impact. That's a very steep divot, so I would imagine that sometimes you do hit it a little heavy, a little thin, and that also plays a little havoc with left and rights unless your timing is really good. And that's where a lot of golf balls need to be struck. So just from overall, I would say definitely work on your alignment from this point of view, but let's take a look at down the line. All right, Robert, so back indoors, let's take a look. Let me draw some lines first. All right, so we got most of the lines up there for you. Let's take a look at the swing, knowing that the issues we had. So alignment looks pretty good. So you're not opening up at starting position. Hands are a little disconnected here. They get below the plane line. Excuse me, the club gets below the hands and the plane line while your arms and hands go up instead of going around. You get a little bit higher as a result. So you can see your hands are going up and getting pretty high. You're sitting down, which is good. You're still in your spine angle, which is really good. You got both knees bracing, which is good. Because your hands are really high, they're going to have to reroute somehow. They don't quite get there. So you can see it's a little bit of a plane issue. It's a little steep. Club face is wide open at this point. And there goes the release. And you can see the right hand. Yeah, you see how that right hand really activates, right? So there's that right hand activating a little bit too soon. And that's, again, from that front view, I hope that makes sense now. The right hand has to activate because your body's leaning into the target too soon, and then your hands have to kind of activate soon. But all in all, I mean, your body does a pretty good job of holding that spine angle. This position here, just be, come on up. Well, as soon as you make contact, here's where you should be. Okay, you're down to your spine angle, just come on up. Because now you're putting a lot of pressure on this lower back region, and I've seen a lot of injuries in that lower back region, especially when you're trying to hold that. I mean, you don't need to hold it that long. You can see this whole left side is really buckling under. That left ankle is going to have some issues. This left knee is going to have this issue, and maybe even your left hip. So a lot of pressure is being put out there. How can we alleviate that pressure? Let's look at your setup. Okay, so setup looks okay. I'd say the feet are a little bit too far forward. If I draw a line from here, you can see the back and the front is more supporting your thoracic area. Try and get it to support your hips more. So pull those feet back, maybe to like here. So at least we get most of your feet covering your hips. That will allow you the stability. And then from here, as you take that club back, if you can see your arms are going on a different path than what they need to. So as you take that club back, your arms are, you're trying to turn and you do a good job, but your hands and arms are going up as you disconnect. So your club face, it just so happens to match your foot line, but your club face is open to your spine. At this point, it should be closed. Square to your spine. Even slightly closed is okay for you to feel that. Now, in order to do that, your left shoulder has to dip further down, which will mean you're increasing a little bit of a tilt early on, which will push your hands closer to that lower plane line. And then also the club face will match your hands. So you want a nice little circle of those two. So it'll make you deeper. You'll be sitting a little bit more, and you'll have a feeling of extension, and you won't really suffer from losing some of your, and you won't really suffer from losing some of your connection, because as you get to the top here, as you take that club back, your arm now is on that path where it's going straight up, and all of a sudden that club face is pretty open, and you have a very steep motion. So now you have to reroute, and unless you reroute, the only option for you is coming down, and you do a good job of coming down. But if you take a look at where that grip is to that golf ball, it's going to try and follow that grip. It's going to follow that line as close as it can, so you don't really reroute it enough. If you look at where the club is from here, so now if I erase this line, and erase this line, so there's not much confusion going on here. If I draw a straight line down there, it's pretty close to the ball, right? From this point on, unless you have extremely quick boxer hands, it's going to hold that line. It's, gravity might pull it a little bit lower, but there's that line. Look at it, just follows that line. Doesn't really pull lower. So based on your top position, you have a very steep angle. I would imagine your driver, you might suffer with direction issues and contact issues, a lot of backspin. So if that sounds familiar, just try a couple of these recommendations for you. Feet back, change that ball position, more connected to your spine, and just deeper turn, more tilt. So I know that's a lot. I can't guess where you're from the inside, so I'll have to remember where you're from the outside. you know, I'm going to stick with Wichita. I've been saying that for the last couple of episodes. So hopefully someone's from Wichita and hopefully it's you. But best of luck to you. Let me know how it goes. All right, next up we have Justin. Justin, it's like you're looking right into my soul there. It's kind of making me nervous. Let me pull this aside. Kind of making me nervous there. All right, let's take a look. So, Justin, do you have anything on your notes? Trying to improve, but not sure what the main issues are with my swing. Thank you so much for in advance. Okay, so this is only a front view. Let me see, face on and down the line. Okay, perfect. Same one. Let's just make sure. Yeah, good. All right. Okay, let's take a look at your swing first of all. Okay, stuck on the left side a little bit. Very tight, very short. I like it. I like that short position. Okay, lower body's really active. Okay, let's look. Oh, we have it here. Let's look at the down the line. That looks like somewhere in Arizona. I'm just going to say Sedona. So let me know if that's right. Okay, so you do a lot of really good things. Yeah, you do a lot of good things. I see some weight distribution issues that might be holding you up here. Let me be right back. I'm going to draw some lines. Okay, so this is a hard view to look at just because it's slightly off center. So a lot of these lines are a little bit off, but we'll try and make the best with what we have. So we can see pretty narrow stance. You know, I've known many great players with narrow stances and wide stances, so it just depends on what you do with them. So there's not one that's right. We're just looking for the right one for you to see if there's any limited going on here. So definitely see your upper body kind of tilting the wrong way here. As you come down into it, you drive your lower body to try and correct your upper body. I do really like your hand action. There's not a lot going on there. And I love the fact that your hands and arms stop about here. I mean, I think if more people swung like this, they'd hit the ball a lot more consistently because less things can go wrong. And if people say this is a short swing, don't listen to them because you have a pretty wide turn and your arms are pretty connected to that turn. So that's pretty good. Now it's what you do with that makes an issue here. So weighting, it doesn't quite look like it's loading correctly. It looks like you're stuck on your left side. So it's very stack and tilt. And the problem with stack and tilt is you have to really untilt and you have to increase your tilt to counteract that bounce. And you do a good job of increasing your lower body tilt here. As you strike the golf ball, you can see your spine angle is slightly ahead of it and increase the tilt. Not much, but it did increase the tilt. Lower body's really active though. I mean, this right foot is pushing up a little bit too soon, which collapses, and it could be counteracting your increased tilt towards the target at the top of your swing. So once that lower body activates too soon, it actually tilts your body the other way. So it could be your way to fight that effect. And as you release the club face, you do a pretty good job. Right hand comes over left, you're still connected. So your upper body's doing a really good job. Lower body just needs to be taken care of. So that right brace line, I know it's hard to see, but watch your right hip. You see your right hip, it kind of shoots out over that right brace line ever so slightly. So your goal is to try and get some spacing between your initial right hip at the top of the swing. So you should actually increase your spacing. A good way to do this is to lay a club. So you want the grip against your right hip and obviously the club head on the ground. So your goal is to turn and make that club fall towards your target. The sooner you can do that, the more you're getting the turn established and you're not sliding over. And the more you do that, then your upper body can get used to kind of transferring a little bit over to your right side so you get something to push off on. Because if you don't have anything to push off on, you have to create something to push off on. And that's where you get this upper body to kind of rock back and give you something to push off. And you're doing counteracting forces. So you want to think of it more like throwing a ball. So to throw a ball, you take a ball and you throw it as hard as you can. You don't start on your left foot if I'm righty and transfer my weight to my right foot and throw it because my body's going away from the target and I have to really do something crazy to throw the ball. But if I take my weighting and go from my right side to my left and throw the ball, a lot more efficient, a lot easier to get that weight transfer. So your swing positions look really good. The lower body is just doing a little bit of a counteracting motion, which causes you to kind of counteract on the way down. And all of a sudden you're getting in this motion instead of just that motion. So Hope that helps you from the front view. It's hard to tell your ball position just because the view's a little bit skewed, so I'm not going to mention that because I don't want to cure anything that's not a problem or create another problem. So let's go down the line and take a look at what happens here. So give me a sec while I clear these lines. All right, so let me move this out the way. Okay, so let's go down the line now. And what we're going to do is draw some plane lines. So give me a sec again. Okay, so we're back. We got the plane lines going on there. I know this is a weird program. I don't know what's wrong with this program. Some lines it gives me nice thick lines, other lines it gives me small lines. So if you know this program and you know how to fix that, let me know in the comment box because it's really frustrating. But hopefully you can see these lines. This is your lower plane line, this is your upper plane line, this is your spine tilt line, this is your head brace line. A couple simple lines that you can use at home as well to just monitor your positions. So the idea for anybody watching this is you want to maintain that posture for as long as you can. If your setup is incorrect, it's going to pull you out of your posture based on what your swing has to use to evolve around. So you want to make sure that you keep an eye on your basics, because if you have incorrect basics and your grip alignment setup posture is off a little bit, there's no point in trying to mess with the swing unless you just want to, constantly cure things that don't need to be cured. So check this right away first. Let's take a look at your position with your feet. So again, the feet are supporting more of the center of the body, maybe the thoracic chamber a little bit too much. So again, maybe just get your feet more underneath your hips. So pull your feet back slightly. We're not talking feet, just inches. Just try a little bit at a time. Arms are hanging down nicely. So there is some spacing there, but I'd like to see a little bit more spacing to help you turn through and tilt naturally. Arms go slightly below plane, and as a result, look at your head. So whenever your body is trying to do one thing, right, it's going to find a way to keep things balanced. So when your arms are pulling back, what that's going to do with your weighting is it's going to pull back your heels. So how does your body counteract that? By your upper body moving forward, so you don't start losing your balance. So you can see your head is moving into the golf ball, which obviously pulls you closer to the golf ball. Your spine angle is not quite as steady as it needs to be. So you've essentially moved about 3 or 4 golf balls closer to the golf ball. Your plane is a little bit steep at this position, so definitely maybe get the hands a little bit higher, and also feel like that club is laid off slightly to get them closer to those 2 plane lines and these 2 here. And then once you go through, let's take a look at that motion. So you do a fairly good job of getting that club down to the plane line. However, it's below your hands at this point, and now that comes with contact issues, heavy shots, thin shots, pushes, and maybe the occasional double, trying to save it, and that's where the pulls and rope hooks come from. But you've lost a lot of this room. So at impact, look how much you've moved into it again. You're trying to stay in your posture, but it's really hard to do with anybody that's moved that much. So your posture's gone from a nice angle like this, and at impact it's kind of gone like this. Now, I've seen some videos out there that say there's like 3 things you need to change to help posture. I don't know, I don't want to say anything bad about other videos, but it's so individualized. There's no band-aid cure to address any of it. Everybody's so unique on why they lose their posture at impact. Some of it has to do with flexibility issues. Some of it has to do with weight distribution. Some of it has to do with incorrect setup, ball position. So there's no cure for anything, unfortunately, in golf. It's like winning 10 games in a row. Every win is worth something. You can't just all of a sudden have one game that's worth 10 points. So there's no shortcuts to anything. You have to really address this as an individual. But for this motion, once you get to here, your path has changed, your arm exit path has changed. You can see it's trying to get back to where it needs to be. It's much higher and away from the secondary plane line. It's at the same angle. So you can see your club shaft is at the same angle as it was in the top of the swing, but look how much closer it is because everything's moved into the golf ball. So bottom line, maintain your posture. I think a lot of this has to do with the weighting. So look at your foot, not now, obviously where are your feet supporting now? They're supporting your hips. Where were they supporting before? Your thoracic chamber. So everything needs to go back to the hips. So it really helps maintain the posture that way too. Hope that helps you. I hope you're in Sedona. If not, my second guess is Wichita again. So I'm gonna say it all the time until someone's in Wichita. I'll make my day saying Wichita, but if it's Sedona, make my day again. Best of luck to you. Let's see who is finally up. All right, Ryan, so welcome. Let's take a look at your notes here. It looks like a busy range back there. I'm not gonna say Wichita. You know what, Wichita. let's just say that until we get somebody. Okay, Ryan, I'm still accepting videos. So you're on here, been golfing just under a year, and would love some feedback on what I can do better. Typical misses are push slices. Man, you know what? Everybody has that when they first start. It's very rare to have the other miss. So welcome to golf, and hopefully we can point out a couple things to help you improve. And always remember though that there's no such thing as a quick fix. You have to really work with somebody, and I would highly suggest it's in your better interest to work with somebody, because it's a much more efficient way to work on your motion. But let's take a look here. Let's set this up. Okay, your spine angle. Let me give you a new spine angle because that one's a little bit crooked. Okay, so based on your spine angle, let's see. Okay, so let me redraw these lines. All right, so we've redrawn the lines there, and we're looking pretty good. So based on your setup, your spine angle is pretty good, balance is pretty good, your posture looks okay, your hands are slightly forward pressing. We'll see what that does at impact. Sometimes it can create some issues, sometimes it's okay, depending on how you work with those. And with the feet, it looks good. It looks very balanced, looks very athletic. Initial turn, okay, you gain some spacing between that right brace line, so that's really good. Upper body's kind of shifting over to the right side. That's okay, maybe a little bit too much. A lot of shoulder turn. I love where your hands are based on that shoulder turn. Coming back into impact, kind of shifting forward again. All right, I mean, for a year playing, this is really solid. I'd be very curious to see if you had any lessons, because this does look like it's been focused on with lessons. So if not, congratulations, because you're already ahead of where most people need to be. So got a really good foundation to work on. I would say definitely the weighting issue, you definitely rock to the right and then rock to the left, which is a good place to start, because you definitely want to feel that weight transfer go from the right side to the left side. But at some point you need to start taming it down, because if your spine angle, the center of your spine angle is where you hit the golf ball. So if your spine angle is moving right and then moving left, you have to time that while you release. And if you don't release in time, or if you release too soon, contact issues arise, clubface issues arise, and we'll have to look and see down the line of what's going on with your push slices. But to help you get an understanding, let's draw a little box around your head and what that does to your spine. Okay, so that's not, no, that's not a box, that's a Picasso box. Okay, so we drew a Picasso around your head. As you come on back over, head's shifted out of that Picasso box. Your new spine angle is pretty good. Increased turn, okay, it's pretty steady. As you come through, you shifted back in that box. So you did a pretty good job. You timed it nicely, hands are pressing. Then you come on out of the shot, you can see momentum's really pushing your upper body over. So I'd maybe work on that weight transfer. You know, it's a tough one, because you do come back in time, but it's something that I would prefer that you work on to have less motion, because over time, you know, that could be an Achilles heel for your swing, specifically for drivers. I mean, you don't want to start swaying into the golf ball with the driver, because that changes your release point. You want to just focus on keeping your head steady, turn, and you can feel the weight distribution by you turning. You know, if I have a bend forward and I just basically turn and keep my head centered, weight's going to get distributed. Now, we're not looking for 100% weight transfer. You're looking for, you know, 60% on your right side, 40 on your left side. Just a subtle transfer that you can push off something to your lead side. So you do a good job. I'd say just tone it down a little bit on the way back and through. Try and stay more in that Picasso, but don't limit yourself. Don't all of a sudden keep your head so steady that your lower body kind of pops the other way. So I have a video. I'll put the link below for you. It's basically the 3 easy tips, or 5 easy tips, whatever it is, to do at home. And one of them is working with a shadow and putting your head against the wall. So I think that might help you. So you might want to watch that video just to see. So pretty good. I'd say you're on a great start. Let's go to the down the line and see what's going on. All right, Ryan. So if you usually watch my videos, you'll notice I'm not doing these little clips that go from session to session. I apologize for that, but these videos do take some time, and running many golf academies, my time gets a little bit tight. So you have to forgive the lack of editing, and some days it will be like that, just to make sure to take care of these videos for you. All right, so let's take a look at that backswing. Wow, it's really good. Weight shifting to your heels a lot, but the core is there. Stuck on your heels. Wow. You've got a really good motion. I'm going to tell you that right now. You've got some solid positions for the limited time you've been playing. So you're well on your way to be a great ball striker. Okay. So a couple things here. This is a tough one again. So you can see how you're starting very hunched over. Your feet are, your legs are pretty straight. Okay, there we go. So they bend down. So you still, I mean, look at how much you're hunched over. We have to redraw that line here. So there's your starting point. Now, that's a little bit too much. And what's going to happen is you're definitely an athlete because you're starting to figure out how to get this done. So let's redraw these plane lines too. So your plane line is, man, this mouse is not cooperating with me. Mouse is at a long day too. All right, so your plane lines based on your spine angle is pretty close to 90 degrees. So that's actually a really good starting position. As you shift your motion to the right, you're riding out that plane line. Your club face is pretty close to your spine angle because your spine angle is actually raising up. You can see how much your head is moving back, and now you have a new spine angle, which is higher. Okay, so now we think about this. We went up higher to alleviate some pressure so you don't start breaking your back, because if you hold that low spine angle and you turn onto that, it puts a lot of pressure on that lower back. So your body's feeling that. So I need to stand up a little bit so I can turn more. Now when you stand up a little bit, your arm plane gets lower based on your initial takeaway. So you can see how your arm plane now is good to your new spine angle, but based on where you started, it's much lower. So you've figured this out. Now on the way through, let's see how we hold that. Do we hold it? Okay, so now you're gonna have a little shallower downswing, but look at that, it's right on the line. It's really good. Club face is squaring up for you, striking the golf ball. You're still holding your spine angle. So look at that, you still got that nice spine angle coming through. Okay, so this is a tough one, my friend, because being so young into the journey of golf, and I know a year might seem like a lot. I played golf for 40 years now. That's 40. There is a lot of things that you need to be careful of. Now you can stay with this setup because you look like you do a good job of compensating. Or you can just decide, you know what? I have such great positions. I need to just learn how to get from point A to point B with less moving parts. And right now you can see what your spine has been doing in the swing. It starts lower and it's just to be higher. That affects your plane, but now you've learned to move your arms back to a certain position. Now, as you develop in the golf swing and develop in your golf game, you have to think ahead. You have to think 10, 15, 20 years ahead. When you're not as agile, when you're not able to compensate so much, will it be tougher for you? When I work with students, I have a duty to my students to keep them safe and keep them around in 20, 25 years to enjoy the game. And if I'm working on something with them that they can physically do now, but based on their lifestyle, they might not be able to do in 20 years' time, am I doing them service? I need to take responsibility for things that I change in my swing, and so must the students. So this is a discussion you need to have. And if you're working with somebody, and hopefully you are, because those are great positions, have this conversation with them. It looks like your alignment looks okay. It looks a little bit open with your shoulders. But other than that, I mean, you're doing a really good job. So your two options are keep going with what you're doing and just accept this little, motion that you have because you make it work, or, tool it up. You're still young in your golf life. You can get a new setup. So stand a little bit closer. Don't get so hunched over. Stand up a little bit more, and then just learn how to turn and turn. Less moving parts, less things can go wrong. And I would definitely imagine, or I can definitely see why there's a potential of you slicing golf balls when you start changing your angle in your swing, going up, and then you hold your positions. That changes your path of your hands based on your initial setup. That changes your club face position. The longer the club gets, the more you'll see misses occur that are path related. If a short club is being struck, because it has more loft, there's going to be less missing. So you might miss it 10 yards right with a 8-iron, but you might miss it 30 yards right with a driver because there's less loft, so there's more effect on the golf ball. So just keep that in mind. The longer the club you swing, the more you'll see your dispersions get wider, and your goal is to keep the dispersions tight. We can't hit the ball perfect, but we can learn how to hit our misses better, so we keep them in play. That's what handicap is about. Remember, handicap's only your best round out of every 4 rounds. So just because let's say you're 10 handicap doesn't mean you go out and shoot 82 to 83 every round. It means once out of 4 times you shoot 82, 83. The other times you might shoot 90, 95, 100. But the other 3 times is what you also need to focus on too, is how do we limit the damages. So even my worst game is high 90s high 80s instead of low 80s. So hope that helps you. Wichita. I'm staying with Wichita this whole episode until somebody gets Wichita. Thanks for joining me again. I hope this helps you out, and we have enough episodes to take us to, I think, episode 31 or 32. So if you know anybody that's interested, have them send me the video, and best of luck to you, and thanks for the support. Fairways and greens.